Hello, welcome back to Talking Europe on France 24. My guest today is the man who was holding Europe's purse strings as the global financial crisis hit. Jean-Claude Trichet is former head of the European Central Bank and now still very much keeping his finger on the pulse of Europe as chairman of the Bruegel think tank, among many other activities. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Trichet.
It's a pleasure.
Well, let's just start off by talking about Europe quite generally. As I mentioned, it's been a pretty rough ride for Europe over the last decade, to say the least. The head of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said quite recently, Europe is back, the economy back on track, things are looking good. Is that your assessment as well?
Yes, indeed. I think that after a period which was badly influenced by the crisis, the financial crisis, then the sovereign risk crisis, Europe is now growing regularly since many years. And it's not been noticed too much, but in 2016, European growth was higher than the US growth, 1.8 against 1.5. Last year, in 2017, again, Europe grew faster than the US, 2 successive years, by 2.5 vis-à-vis 2.4. So clearly, Europe is back, it's true. Fortunately, creates job, has a real growth which is more flattering than before, but a lot of hard work remains to be done. I mean, nothing to consider as being done. We still have a lot of structural reforms to embark on. But I expect that the European will continue to grow and will continue to catch up with the delay which were associated with the financial crisis, again, and the sovereign risk crisis, which was a crisis, the epicenter of which was precisely in Europe.
Indeed. Well, it's nice to start on a positive note. We'll probably come to some of the risks for the future of Europe in just a minute. I'd like first, though, to look back over the last 10 years with the crisis hitting in Europe. You were head of the European Central Bank when this all unfolded in Europe and around the world. At what point did you realise what was happening and how bad this was going to be?
Well, we had to cope with something which was absolutely exceptional, the intensity of which had not been observed since World War II. And it started quite early in my case when I was president of the European Central Bank. The 9th of August 2007, we had a money market which was totally collapsing. So we had to take exceptional measures, like giving liquidity to the banks on a full allotment basis, that fixed rate. And we were asked 95 billion euros, and we gave 95 billion euros. That was before the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers. Then we had the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers, and we had to cope with this extraordinary situation where the house of cards of the financial sphere in the advanced economy was collapsing. So we could, respond to this incredible situation together with Ben Bernanke and Mervyn King and the other friends and central bank governors in order to cope with this situation. We did it. Had we not taken very bold and swift decision, we would probably have had something like the depression, looking like the 29-30 depression.
So you think the crisis could have actually been worse?
It could have been much, much worse.
Because many people lost their homes, lost jobs, banks folding, like you say.
Of course, the price to be paid has been considerable. And the level of unemployment, the Great Recession, which was triggered by this crisis, has been terrible. But it could have been much, much worse. Again, had we not taken the decision that, as I said, we are bold and swift in the constituency of central banks, and also the governments had to say, well, there was one Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, but there will not be any other bankruptcy, neither in the US, nor in Europe, nor anywhere else, in the advanced economy, because it was really a crisis of the advanced economy, not a crisis, as you know, of the emerging economies.
Well, let's look back to the current day then. Currently, trust in Europe seems to be rather shaky, to say the least. There's lots of Euroscepticism coming out of national elections around the continent. Brexit, of course, the UK leaving Europe. According to the latest European official survey, trust in the EU is currently about 41% on average. Now, that has come up, but it's as low as 23% in Greece, even 39% in France. What more should Europe be doing to try and restore trust?
The Eurobarometer says that the euro itself as a currency was never so popular as is published since last year, December. We have a higher percentage of people that are thinking that the euro is good for Europe as a whole, a higher percentage of people that are thinking that the euro is good for their own country. And the fact that the euro is much more backed by the people than it was suspected has been confirmed by all the elections. You remember, we had a sequence of election. Dutch election, French election, German election, Italian election.
So you see it more as Eurosceptics rising up and being defied?
Much less Euroscepticism than was projected ex ante, because the reasoning, and in my opinion, it's a wrong reasoning, was the UK is against Europe and against the euro by definition, but against Europe, against the European Union. It is due to the populist move that has been observed in the US and in the UK. That very same populist move should be on the continent against the euro, against Europe. And what we have observed is that it was not the good grid for reading what was happening on the continent. The euro and Europe remains backed by the people. We could see that in the Netherlands. We could see that in France in a way which has been so striking, 66 against 34 for Europe on the one hand and against the euro or Europe on the other hand. The lesson which has been drawn by the so-called extreme right movement in France is that it was a mistake to be against the euro and against Europe. In Italy, which is a case in point, of course, the Five Stars political party said, we do not want to leave the euro and to leave Europe. They said that ex ante, they changed their position. And I guess that it was because they had seen what happened in the other countries and didn't want to be hampered by such a position. So you see, to me, the populism, namely nationalism, protectionism, anti-immigration, is a general move that we observe in all countries that are advanced economy. US, UK, continental Europe, of course. But it would be a mistake, in my opinion, to think that it is essentially anti-European in continental Europe and in Ireland. It seems to me that it is a very, very important political problem, a very, very important new political wave that is expressing frustration of a large part of our people. But again, it is not directed against Europe, against the euro. And again, my own figures in the Eurobarometer are confirming that there is a strong backing for this European historical endeavor.
Europhilia, perhaps, coming back. Well, right here in France, President Macron is working to overhaul the French economy. A lot of people here, though, they fear that their social rights, their benefits that have built up to be very strong over time are being sacrificed in the name of growing the economy. Is President Macron, do you think, going in the right direction?
Yes, it is really very, very important in a country which has mass unemployment, which is not acceptable, to do all what we can. And I think it was very clearly said by President Macron before the election, to modernize the country, to have much better functioning of our markets, and to be sure that we put all the chances on our side as regards creating jobs and eliminating mass unemployment, which is a big disgrace, obviously. And we know by looking at other countries that it is possible to arrive to something which would be much closer to full employment. So, yes, I think the reforms are going in the right direction. And I think that one has to explain tirelessly, and I try to do that myself, why it is very, very important that we could continue along this path of reforms.
OK, well, we actually have a report with an example of one specific way that President Macron wants to overhaul the economy. He unveiled his plans this week. He's embracing robots, so to speak. We're talking about a major public investment in artificial intelligence and all of the jobs needed to integrate AI ever more into our lives. We'll watch this report by Onko Ula.
The French government claims that artificial intelligence will create jobs. and has pledged 1.5 billion euros to the research and development of the industry. Some multinationals have responded by boosting investment in France. Samsung Electronics said it would create 100 jobs in AI, while Japan's Fujitsu will develop a research center. IBM says it will recruit 400 AI experts in France over 2 years. The company believes artificial intelligence will revolutionize our daily lives and the labor market.
Artificial intelligence will change how you buy clothes, how you communicate with your bank, how we think, and how we access information.
IBM develops ways to apply AI to everyday situations. For example, a customer can bring a picture of their dream sweater to a store, and this computer will find it for them. To create these applications, companies need to hire developers. They translate everything to algorithms, mathematical equations that will complete the right tasks. But some experts say that first, many jobs will be destroyed, replaced by machines.
Driving a car, working in the fields, even answering phones in a call center. All these are tasks we can see being affected by automation and mechanization.
From self-driving cars to robots, it looks like AI is here to stay. The biggest tech companies in the world are estimated to have spent between $20 and $30 billion on AI in 2016, a sum that keeps getting bigger.
There we go, some dancing robots to finish that story there. President Macron putting his faith, putting his money into artificial intelligence. Do you see this as the future?
Yes, we are experiencing a new revolution. And I think that it is absolutely right to say that it will transform very profoundly, progressively. It's not an immediate thing. It goes progressively because we do not observe yet the productivity progress that are associated with the generalization of artificial intelligence and more generally the generalization of all IT improvements. But we will see that, and I am personally thinking that this is obviously the future. It's not a surprise that China has said artificial intelligence, we will be the leader in artificial intelligence. The US says the same. The Europeans have to be present, of course, and France in particular. That's clear.
Is France playing catch-up a little bit, and perhaps with a bit of a handicap? Because obviously the public deficit here, it came down under 3% for the first time in a decade this week, but it is still higher than a lot of other European countries. Can France really afford to make big investments in this kind of thing?
I mean, France has to save money in many domains because we are spending much more than the average of the European Union and much more than the average of the euro area. So a lot of savings have to be made, and of course, to utilize those savings in the domain of the industry of the future, of the economy of the future, of artificial intelligence, but not only artificial intelligence, all the future industry are at stake. And I think it is exactly what you have to do, of course. One of the chances of France is that you have here a lot of engineers that are educated in the French schools and prove to be very, very good, I have to say. And I'm not surprised that there are a lot of jobs that are created for those kind of guys, if I may, when they are coming out of these engineering schools. Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep looking to the future, but going elsewhere in Europe. I'd like to talk about the Brexit. It's just under 1 year to go now until the UK leaves the EU and starts its transition period. Now, some business leaders in the UK said recently they feel quite reassured by the progress they've seen on these negotiations. However, we've also seen really big demonstrations in the UK by people who still think that they can stop Brexit from happening. Tony Blair saying that perhaps that's possible as well. As someone on the European side who knows Europe from the inside, do you feel reassured that there's going to be a smooth break?
Well, we will see, of course. It depends very much on the UK. And the UK could have chosen from the very beginning a soft Brexit, and everything would have been simplified. But they choose a hard Brexit for political reasons. I can understand those political reasons, but obviously it complicates formidably things. So we will see what happens. My own understanding is that it will have a cost for the UK, obviously, there is no doubt. For the rest of Europe, clearly we are very big in comparison with the UK. Even without the UK, in the euro area, we are bigger than the US. We have 340 million people. So there is a disproportion of size of GDP. But I will personally lose with the UK not staying with us, the sanctuary of market economy, the sanctuary of representative democracy, and the sanctuary of liberties with habeas corpus. So we are losing a lot. The UK is losing a lot in leaving Euro. The Europeans are losing, well, as I said, the values that the UK is championing. But okay, it's the decision of the UK people. It's a pity. Maybe Tony will be right. Maybe Gordon Brown also will be right. And at the end of the day, the UK will not really leave. I would, consider the best one of the best possible event that the U-turn is being done. But it's not very likely, of course.
Well, do you think, though, just briefly, that that's something that, at least on the EU side, would be accepted?
Of course. Of course. All the members of the European Union are wishing that the UK stays. There is no doubt on that. Remember, in the time of General de Gaulle, the UK was knocking at the door and the Europeans were saying, no, we don't want you. Now we have all countries, without any exception, calling the UK to stay. And the UK decides to leave. It's really a pity.
Well, there's still some time to go on that, of course, that deadline of October to find the final Brexit deal, and then some negotiations after that as well.
We'll see.
Thank you very much for your time, Jean-Claude Trichet. Thanks for coming in to see us, former head of the ECB and chairman of the Bruegel think tank. Thank you as well very much for watching our programme. Remember, you can find all of our editions of Talking Europe on our website, france24.com. We'll see you very soon for more European news here on France 24.